Hey guys, my name is Vindicator, and today I'm going to be making a tutorial for you guys explaining the preferences window of the StarCraft 2 editor, at least as much as I know about it. You know, they've added a lot of new things recently, or at least a few new things, and even before that I didn't know what everything was, but I think I know what a lot of it is, so hopefully you'll learn a few things. One thing you can do is make this little window show up when you start up the editor, and it makes it load faster because not only does it not have to go to a specific module of the editor when you load it up, it doesn't load an existing document or anything like that, or an existing map. So it lets you decide which module you want to start in every time. So I'll show you that among a few other things. So whichever module you go to, you can just go to File here and then go to Preferences and this is the window I'm going to be explaining stuff from. So first off here, the first category is Battlenet preferences. The first thing here is region. That lets you choose which region. You know, usually there's probably only going to be two choices: the region that your editor is from and default. So you don't usually have to worry about that. Account is the account that you log into StarCraft 2 with, and the checkbox there is for, obviously, just like it says, checking for updates to make sure that the you've got the most recent version of the editor when you log in. Camera here, invert mouse motion is used in anything that you know is 3D, like the terrain editor or previewing models and stuff like that. It's just like inverting your mouse in a game when you to change up and down and which way it moves when you move the mouse up and down. The other things here, off the top of my head, I actually don't think I know. Rotation speed is probably left and right with the mouse, and rotating with the hotkeys for the keyboard. Translation, I don't know what that necessarily means. It might just be the scroll speed, but that's a weird word for it if it is. Auto scroll when drag moving the camera to the edge of the screen. So what that is talking about is, let me show you here really quick. If I make a new map, make it as big as possible so you can see what it's doing here. So when you're in the terrain editor here and you can press the right mouse button to drag where you want to go. When you go to the edge, it's going to keep moving in case you want to keep going, and I do believe that that is what that slider is right there. That checkbox is defining whether it will do that or not. So if I turn that off and I go to the edge, it's not doing anything. So, and that's how fast it will go if it is enabled. And then auto scroll when dragging a selection or a brush is the exact same thing, except it's not when you're moving or scrolling with the right mouse button. It's when you're actually placing units and stuff like that, or placing doodads, you know, whatever. That will have it scroll the same way. All right, colors. You know, there's hundreds of custom colors for different things in the editor. I'm going to go over the one that I think is the most important here really quick. I'm definitely not going to go through these one by one. That could be a tutorial all on its own. But there's one here called General-Image Preview Background. This one's really important. It's black by default, and what this is for, it might be for more than this, but at least what I know it's for is when you're looking at previews of 2D images in the editor, that's the color that transparency shows as. And if it's black, you don't know if something's transparent or if it's actually black. So for example, there is an image that comes with StarCraft 2 called black.dds, and it's actually not black. It's actually just completely transparent, but it appears black in the editor by default. So let me go ahead and just to make sure you understand what I'm talking about here, let me give you an example. So if you watched my first tutorial, you might have seen me look up the attack button and then go to the icon for it. Everything that's pinkish there is transparent, but if I go back to the preferences here and change this color to black, now transparency is black. So if this was the first time I was ever looking at this image and I had never seen it before, I might think that it's completely black. I wouldn't know, because black is used pretty often, but pink isn't. So I that's why I chose pink, is because it's probably one of the most least used colors, at least in what I do. You know, who knows, you might make something that uses pink a lot, I don't know, but that's why I changed that, and I think it's pretty important. It doesn't really matter too much what color it is as long as you know what it is. So same thing with Blizzard, you know, pink isn't used very often, so when you're browsing through their images, pink isn't usually going to show up. So if you have that as pink, you'll know that it's transparency that you're looking at. So it's pretty helpful. So there's lots of colors here, and that's where you can change them. All you got to do, double click, choose a color, and you're set. And if you don't like what you've done and you don't remember where something you changed is at, you can always click on reset to defaults. And also, if you get really hardcore about your colors and you change a lot, you can click export out here or down here to save all your colors. So if you wanted to try some new things but didn't want to have to remember everything that you're testing out, you could import a saved color scheme. So and then this displayed colored text in line just shows you the actual color on the text instead of just in the icon there. Alright, documents. Optimize saving for faster save or smaller files. This is actually really important because this carries over to publishing your game to Battlenet as well. So faster saves means you've got bigger files. Smaller files mean they're obviously smaller, but it's compressing it a lot more. Loading times, I think I have even seen loading times literally doubled. You know, who knows if that's completely accurate. I know that it's significantly longer usually because you need a really good processor to be able to uncompress really fast. So that's what that does. Personally, I'd recommend doing faster saves as often as possible, even though it's bigger, and even though your map will be bigger when you publish to Battlenet. You know, people will be sitting at the loading screen for a shorter amount of time if you do the faster saves, because it's not only faster saves, it's faster loading. Now, if you're getting really close to your map size limit for whatever reason, I'd recommend, you know, putting some files in from your map into a mod file if at all possible, because usually 99% of games aren't going to have more than 20 megabytes of, you know, code and stuff. Usually they'll bypass that 20 megabyte map size limit if they have, you know, assets in there that could be put in mod files alternatively. So next thing here, automatically save documents every 10 minutes is the default, and it's off by default as well. But what this does is, let's say, you know, there's a bug with the editor or something and it's like crashing, and you don't want to have to worry about that, or maybe you have a system that isn't 100% stable and it blue screens or crashes sometimes, or even, you know, Windows updates these days, you might leave the editor on overnight and the Windows update will be like, it just decides on its own it wants to restart your computer to install updates, and you might lose what you were working on. So if you automatically have your document saving every however many minutes or hours, that'll guarantee that you'll have at least some sort of a backup if you forgot to save recently. And then this option here, automatically backup documents when saving. You can have it overwrite the document you're working in. Whenever they say document, they're just referring to a map. That's their name for it. You can specify your Windows user folder, which it'll show you as a tooltip there if you hover over it, and then you can specify your own custom folder for the backups to be saved in, so that it will never overwrite the one that you're working on. So include automatic saves. Honestly, off the top of my head, I don't know what that means. Anyway, limit number of backups per document to 5. So let's say I'm saving to a custom folder and I don't want to pile up, you know, more than 5. Then it'll start overwriting the oldest one when it gets to number 6. So it'll limit, you know, there to only be 5 copies wherever you choose to save it, and you can change that to whatever. That's to conserve disk space basically, and keep things as organized as possible. Don't back up more often than every 1 hour. You know what I forgot to mention here, this automatically backup documents when saving is this one here is how it differs from this one is that it's only going to do this backup when you manually save. So well, when you manually save, or if you have this one enabled, it's also it will you know, save a backup copy. So this one doesn't save a backup copy, it just overwrites your map that you're working on, and this is what defines whether you have a backup copy that's completely separate from the copy you're working on. So so this one, even if this is saving every 10 minutes, this down here is saying that the backup will not be updated more often than however much time you specify there. And then this option, just like it sounds, will delete all backup copies of your map older than however much time you specify there, so you don't get a crazy number of backups, because if you had like 500, if you wanted to do something like that, that would keep it from getting, you know, having tons and tons and tons there. So, and then automatically reload documents on external file change. Reload documents. So I'm not sure about this, but what that sounds like to me is, you know, obviously if something external that you're accessing, I don't know if that's, you know, MPQ, well, you know, Blizzard mod files that you're using, or, you know, Blizzard dependencies if they change, or if even you know, I don't know. I'm not going to guess on that one for you guys. If I figure it out, I'll let you guys know later. I just don't know what that one is. Here we go. These are custom text or custom fonts used throughout the editor. So let me show you here, for example. If you go to the trigger editor here, whenever you highlight trigger stuff, there's font down here, and when you're in preferences looking at this, can't remember which it is, it's this one I think, yeah, trigger editor grammar text is what displays down there. Now trigger editor script code, if you open up the scripting editor, I think, yeah, it's control F11, so that is the text that shows there. So if I go back to preferences and I double click on that, you can choose whatever you want for the font to show up, and just choose a random one here. So there you can see the font changed. So so the other fonts here, these two are for the data editor, editor tips. All editor tips are when you start up the editor and you see that tip appear, at least by default. That's the font that the tips are in. I don't know everywhere that the hyperlinks are used off the top of my head, but let's see if we can figure this one out really quick. Yeah, that's not it. But, you know, anyway, bottom line is that's different fonts used throughout the editor. You can figure out on your own, you know, where they are and see changes. But anyway, so undo limit here, like if you're doing something in, you know, not just the terrain editor, but almost any place in the editor, you can undo things. I don't think you can undo like importing files and stuff like that. I don't know, they might have changed that, but I don't think you can do something like that. But almost anywhere in the editor, you can press Control Z to undo things, and that just defines how many undos are possible. I don't know if lowering that number will increase performance, since it doesn't have to worry about keeping track of as many things. I don't think so, but there's a chance you could, you know, mess around with that and see if that changes any performance. But and then display messages for undo and redo actions. You know, if you turn that on, it'll pop up the little message window. So if I press Control Z right now, bam, this pops up. Honestly, it's minorly annoying to me for that little window to ever pop up, so I wouldn't enable that. But if something's going haywire, or well, you know, there are definitely reasons that you would want to use that, because if you need to read or undo like 10 things and you don't remember what a couple of those things are that you just did, boom, that will tell you what exactly you're undoing or redoing. The max frames a second here is just like it sounds. That's what it limits your frames per second to in the terrain editor. And then the preview window is anywhere else other than the terrain editor that you view 3D stuff, it'll limit the frame rate. And also, I think a preview window is actually defined as a preview for text as well, if you can believe, because I remember I was using Fraps one time, and I noticed a little frame rate counter pop up in the text preview window. I'm like, whoa! So I guess that's a 3D space of some sort as well. So that was interesting. But yeah, that's you know, if you're using the editor for a long periods of time, I definitely recommend using this. It just reduces heat in your computer. You know, there shouldn't be much of a reason to ever go above 60 frames a second on anything in the editor, unless yeah, you know, there's probably exceptions. But anyway, sounds. These are the sounds like when you undo and redo sounds play. I don't have my sounds being recorded, so you can't hear them right now. But if you press Control Z and Control Y to undo and redo stuff, different sounds will play, and that controls those sound effect volumes right there. And also, if you're in the data editor and you're you know, you're listening to sounds through the editor, this will affect those sounds as well, even though you can control volume in the data editor. There's in-game volume that you're controlling there in the data editor usually, and this is the editor volume. So, and this is also, you can change the custom sounds that play for different things that you do in the editor, like for example, just like it says here, terrain editor placement failure. So if you try to place a unit on top of another unit and the first unit's like blocking the placement, that's the error sound. If anything's annoying, you can change it to whatever you want. Startup. Now this is when you saw me start the editor up and that little window popped up, that's called the module launcher. Like I said earlier, it just lets you choose which module you want to start in. I like doing that. If you choose remember previous modules, if you had, you know, the data editor, the trigger editor, and the text editor or module open, it would open all three of them next time if you closed the editor while those three were open. And then specific modules will allow you to define which ones you want to open when you open the editor specifically every time the editor opens. Personally, I'm using, you know, depending on what I'm doing, I'm using a different module every time, so I just say module launcher and it loads faster, and that's why I like it. Startup documents, this allows you to choose if it loads a map when you start the editor. So none obviously does not load a map. Remember previous documents opens the maps that were previously open the last time you were in the editor. You can have multiple maps open simultaneously. You can't view multiple ones simultaneously, but you can switch between different maps. So if you have two that are open and accessible, and you close the editor, it would open those same two the next time you open the editor if that was chosen. And then create new document. What that means is every time you start up the editor, boom, it would create a new map or mod. And then cutscene editor default sources. What that means to me, I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure this is accurate, is that when you open up the cutscene module, it will have access to all three of these StarCraft 2 dependencies. So if you didn't want all the campaign stuff like from story mode and single player to show up, you could just uncheck those, and by default only the non-single player stuff would show up if you did that. So alright, let me switch that back to there. And then tablet. This is for art guys. If you've got a tablet, the editor is supposedly, as it looks like to me at least, compatible with tablets. I've never used one, I don't have one, so I haven't messed around with that, but it looks like it, you know, it automatically detects if you have one, and you can change pressure sensitivity stuff with that and what it does based on the pressure. Test document, what that means is when you test the game in StarCraft 2 that you're working on, these are the settings that will go along with them. If difficulty is, you know, makes a difference in your game, this is where the game difficulty that it loads the game with is chosen. Melee expansion, you know, again, when future expansions come out for StarCraft 2, when Heart of the Swarm or Legacy of the Void is released, you'll be able to choose you know, which version of the game you are loading the game with to test in. Game speed, obviously that's how fast the game is being played when you're testing, and that can be changed in game after you start it up. Used fixed random seed. What this means is if you have any triggers in your map that say choose a random number between 1 and 10, for example, whatever number you put here, I believe, is what it will always choose. I haven't ever used that before. Somebody else explained that to me a long time ago, and I believe I'm repeating it correctly. I think that's exactly what it is. When you test your maps, run game in a window will force it to be running in a window, even if your StarCraft 2 settings are set to run in a full screen. And then you must be running in a window for the trigger debugging window to be displayed. And break on trigger error if the debug window is open. What that does is if you get a trigger error, I believe that will literally like pause the game. I think I need to test that actually. It might not pause it. It might just stop the problematic trigger and just keep on going, but I think it already does that in the first place, so I'm pretty sure that will just pause the game so you can read what the error is before, you know, sometimes when you have errors it will be page after page of errors going, like, depending on what the issue is relating to, so that'll guarantee that you can see exactly what started the issue. But anyway, minimize editor windows. This is fantastic. I wanted this for a long time. The editor used to minimize all of the editor windows when you would test a game. So like if I do that, as you can see, the editor just minimized all these windows, and so if you have a lot of windows open, it was kind of annoying to me, at least. So so I always set these to none. I don't like it minimizing anything. You know, I can just then click. I can alt tab a lot easier. Enable preloading. What I believe that does is, you know, whatever assets are going to be used in your game. You know, if you have a bunker and a marine and a zealot that are going to be showing up on the map by default, when the game starts, it'll preload those assets whether you're looking at them or not. And it's, you know, it's more than just you know, that, but in general, you know, that's all it is. Additional options, never used it, and I have no clue what you can do right there. I'm sure that there's some information about that online if you look around, but that's it. Default map, I don't know what that is either. In copied document, location to copy the current document before loading a game. Oh, when you test your map, you know, it saves it right then and there if you didn't just save, so that it can load from that document. So that's like the temporary directory where it is saving your game temporarily when you test. And also, just a random fact, if you save right before you test, it'll launch the game faster, because, you know, usually it saves first and then launches. Well, if it knows if you just saved, so it won't have to save it again in the background. Never used that before. That's good to know. So when you're making a mod, which isn't actually a map, it's just containing assets for a map, it looks like you can specify a map to test those assets in. So that's good to know. I didn't realize that was there. Alright, video. This is just the video settings for your game that load when you launch the game via the editor. If you don't want anything to be different from, you know, StarCraft 2 settings when you're usually playing the game, then you just click on match game settings. And if you don't want that, if you want something different, like if you know, a lot of graphics look completely different, like you might do something that looks really cool in your game with lighting or something, but there's a lot of players that won't see all the things that you're doing because their settings are lower than you, and it might look completely different for them. So you might want to, you know, switch everything to low and see what it looks like for people that are playing on low versus the higher detail that you might be working in, and see if you want to try to change something up for them as well. Anyway, so that is the preferences window for the most part there. I think that's it. Yep. Alright guys, well hey, thanks for watching. Don't forget, you know, if you want to let me know about any tutorials that you'd like me to do, let me know below, and you know, I'll definitely consider them. You know, if you're struggling somewhere, let me know, and I'll try to, you know, even if it's just with one little thing, I'll try to throw it into one of my tutorials, and or just simply answer you below. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and take it easy. Bye bye.